Good morning. You're watching Much Ado About Something, and I'm Donna. And this morning we're going to be making blackberry jam. Donald and I picked these blackberries yesterday, and they were wild. They were growing on the side of the road, and we and Donald went out and picked them. If you'd like to see that video, it's called Foraging for Mullein Flowers and Blackberries. So that was a really good video, and it'll show you how we pick these blackberries. And today we're going to make blackberry jam with them. I'll be canning my jam today. You don't have to can yours, but I'll be canning mine. And part of that comes making sure you have good, clean jars. So I'll be washing up all of my jam jars. And getting ready to fill them. Now I've got a real tight space here in my kitchen, so I don't have a lot of boiling water going on. I've got this oven heated up at 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And after I've got all my jars washed up, I just put them on a pan. Now I've got all my clean jars on this pan, and I'm going to put them in the oven, the 250 degree Fahrenheit oven, and they're going to wait for me until I get this jam done. This jam gets really hot, so you want to be sure you've got somewhere to put it when it's time to put it in the jars. Now here's our berries. We've run these through a colander, and we've washed these berries. So we've rinsed our berries off, and now what we're going to do is we're going to measure them out so we'll know how much sugar to add. We're going to measure out in cups how many berries we have, and we're going to put them in our pot. So far we have about 10 cups of berries. We're going to round it off to 11 because this one's almost a cup. Now that we've got our almost 11 cups of blackberries in our pot, we're going to mash over them a little bit. All right, now we have our blackberries in our pot, and I've put 3 cups of sugar over it, and we're going to put equal amounts of sugar to berries. And I have it measured out here, and that seems like a lot of sugar. And it is a lot of sugar, but just remember, you won't be eating this, a lot of this. You'll just be using this a teaspoon at a time. It's a jam. It's a topping, a flavoring. It's not necessarily a side dish. Now I'm going to add 2 cups of water to this 11 cups of blackberries and 11 cups of sugar. And I'm going to stir this up, and I'm going to turn this jelly on medium high with this jam. And we're going to bring this to a full rolling boil. Now blackberries naturally are high in pectin, and I picked a few red berries in here just to add additional pectin. But in the Appalachians, instead of using pectin. Our tradition was to use green apples. This is an apple that's not ripe off of the tree, and what you would do is just slice up some of this green apple and put it right into your pot. And green apples have a lot of pectin. And before there was store-bought pectin, that's what we did. We just added fruits that were high in pectin, even if they were not ripe yet, and we added them to our jams and jellies, and that's what made them gel. Now your jam, you don't want to gel like jelly. You don't want it that firm. You want it a little bit less firm than jelly so that it's spreadable and it'll have all these fruits in them. Now we have our 11 cups of berries, our 11 cups of granulated sugar, and our blackberries. 2 cups of water. We added 2 cups of water to our blackberries. So that's going to be our jam. And we're going to cook this until it reaches a jam, a point where it can kind of hold together a little bit. We don't cook it as a high temperature as jelly. Jelly needs to cook to 220 degrees Fahrenheit. We're just going to cook it to around just under that, to where it holds together, maybe 200, 210. So we'll be waiting for that. I'm not going to use any pectin today. I'm just going to use what's naturally in the berries, but I do like to use a thermometer in my jams and jellies, and that gives me an idea of what temperature this is reaching. That can vary at different times where you're at as to how long you cook something. And because of that varying what you're cooking and where you're cooking it, I always like to use a thermometer, and it kind of guides me and lets me know what temperature my jams and jellies are reaching. And so we're looking for somewhere around 200, 210. .220 is the gelling point. They call it the thread state. And we don't want it to go quite that high today. We don't want to cook it to 220 because we're not really wanting it to set up into a thick, firm jelly. We're just wanting it to be a good loose jam. Now blackberries have a lot of water in them, so you don't need a lot of water. I added the 2 cups of water because there's a lot of flavor in these berries. And if you make just straight berries, that makes a real thick jam, and I want mine a little looser so it'll spread on biscuits. So I always add about 2 cups of water, or you can use apple juice to your jam. I'm not adding any pectin. I'm just going to let it naturally firm up.
Fingernails and all them fingernails is getting cut.
Okay, when you bring your jelly to a boil and you let it boil, or your jam, you can see it rises when it boils. So you want to make sure you've got a pot big enough so when your jelly rises, or your jam, that it doesn't go over the pot, because if it does, then you've got a mess on your hands. Well, I've got this butter, and I'm going to put it on here because that helps this foam to go, that you won't have so much of this foam. The foam doesn't really hurt anything. It's just not attractive, and it can be prevented with about a teaspoon of butter. So let's just put that in there and stir that around and let it prevent a lot of that foam. Now my jam has reached the temperature that it needs to reach, so I'm going to take this thermometer out. And I'm going to get ready and put this jam into jars. It's that little bit of butter in there. It's melting. So I'm hoping it won't be real foamy. But you can see how much this jam has rose to the top of this pot as I've cooked it. Okay, our jam is ready. It's ready to put in the jars. Now, jam can be a little messy. If you've ever heard the saying, well, you're in a jam now, there's a reason that they say that. This jam can be pretty messy. Well, as you can see, I've got these jars on this pan, and I'm going to leave them on this pan so that when I fill them up, if any dribbles on the side, I don't have to worry about so much about it because it's in this pan. Now I fill my canning jars that's out of a 250-degree oven, so they're hot. This jam is really hot, and we don't want it to crack the jars, so we make sure we got hot jars and hot jam. I fill it up to a 1/2 inch head space on this jar. And the wonderful thing about this jam is that you don't have to just put it on toast or biscuits. You can put this jam on desserts. You can make desserts centered all the way around this. It's great on top of cakes and jelly rolls. There's a lot of different ways to use this jam. Now I'm going to go ahead and wipe the rim on this one here. I'm going to wipe them all down and put the lid on them. This jam is really hot right now. So you want to be as careful as you can with it. Now, Appalachians call this summer in a jar. Anytime you would to open this in the winter time, if there's snow on the ground and you open this blackberry jam, the flavor is going to take you back to when it was summertime and you picked and ate the blackberries. You can also make blackberry cobbler with this jam. There's many things that you can do with it. But there it is. There's the finished product. It's going to cool off, and as it cools off, it'll thicken. I'm going to process for 10 minutes these jars of jam that I got here. I'll put them in boiling water for 10 minutes. And this pot here, we'll see that little bit left down in there on the side? That's for the cook. That I'll get to taste that and see how good that'll be. Then I'll have to clean up all this. But I'm going to go ahead and wipe down these jars and put the lids on them and process them for 10 minutes in a hot water bath. And that'll be this year's blackberry jam ready to go. Thank you for joining me today. And like always, until next time.